Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to this new episode of Converse with a Coach. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to this wonderful episode of Converse with a Coach. My name is Mireille Carrera, and I am your host for Converse with a Coach. If you are joining us for the very first time, welcome to all of you, and a special welcome to some of you following us from Dubai, UAE. Today is quite a special show, and I would like to thank those of you who are very loyal to Converse with a Coach and that follow us continuously. Now, we are going to spend the next 60 minutes with a guest speaker that will talk to us about a specific topic that I'm 100% sure is very relevant to this day and age. Before I introduce my guests, allow me to share with you, following us for the very first time, what Converse with a Coach is. Converse with a Coach is a live YouTube show that I host together with my team at Cora Coaching Group, where we as coaches believe that it is indeed a good thing to take some time on Sundays, where most of us on Sundays are not working, to really think about specific issues and be inspired and be motivated about key topics that will allow us to have a new week filled with vision, purpose, and also goals, including hope and motivation. So there's a lot of things that I can say about what we do, but rather than me sharing all of that with you, can I invite you to, first of all, click that button, subscribe to this channel so that you can get to see more of these episodes, but at the same time, so that you can get to follow a lot more topics that we covered in the last few months. Now, we started Converse with a Coach back in August last year, right in the middle of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. And as a coach myself, together with my team, we felt that there is a need for people like you to start the week filled with hope, motivation, but also have access to coaching conversations. Now, our guests are guests who are expert coaches like me. We invite life coaches, leadership coaches, business coaches as one part of the guest speakers that are there to inspire you, but also help you think in a strategic way. Now, the other half of the guest speakers that we invite are thought leaders. Thought leaders, just like my guest today, who are leaders in their own specific fields and sectors. So they are leaders in corporate banking, hospitality, and various other sectors such as ICT that we are going to cover today. So we also like to invite you to really go through the archive of previous episodes that I'm sure will inspire you. And I'm thinking about episodes where we covered areas such as how can you make quick decisions in moments such as this? And how can you take your power back if you are no longer uplifted? And I've had guests who were board members of organizations, chairmen of banks, or those who've started banks in countries, or I've had guests who were presidents of the African insurance associations, and many, many more, who I'm sure will fit in your respective sector. And also, as you will know, we converse with people. The goal is to get to be inspired by leaders and understand how did they get to where they are today. And I am so happy that today, indeed, my special guest today is Mr. Basil Moftah, who is joining us from Dubai, UAE. Before we have Basil speak with us, allow me to share a little bit about our guest speaker. Our guest speaker, Basil, is based in Dubai, and he is the general partner at Global Venture, which is a venture capital that invest in people who are truly making changes in their societies. And the focus is on emerging markets. With that said, we will uncover more about Basil's work and how it is relevant to today's topic. So, Basil, welcome to Converse with a Coach.
Hi, Mireille. Nice to see you again, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to have you. Earlier on, we were sharing that we have switched. I'm in Kigali, Rwanda, and you are based in Dubai, but it's really hot in Kigali right now, which will be a Dubai weather, right?
Yes, normally Dubai would be pretty hot by now, but this year has been an unconventional winter, I would say. It's been pretty cold, and today I mean, it's nighttime now, so you can't really see behind me, but I'm actually sitting outdoors and feeling a little bit chilly, I have to tell you.
In Dubai, Chile, wow. That's interesting. Right. Thank you, Basil, for really making time to speak to our audience. And for those of you who are joining us from different countries, I know that we have people following us from various countries and continents. I welcome all of you. Can you just say hello and share with us where you are logging in from, where you are dialing in from? The last time we had someone beautiful surprise to me, but someone logging in from Iran. So if you are joining us from countries such as Iran, we are welcoming you and also welcoming our domestic audience in Rwanda and our most popular audience in North America, including Canada. So Basil, today you and I are going to be speaking on a specific topic, but I do have a tradition on the show. The tradition is to share with the audience how we met. Could you say a little bit more? Do you remember how we met?
I believe I do. Let me try and correct me if I'm wrong, Mireille. We met in London, if I remember correctly. It was just right after Thomson Corporation had acquired Reuters, which is now back in 2008, I guess. I was, visiting London from our Dubai office where I was managing the region, if you like, Middle East and Africa. And I think we talked about whether your role and the things you were doing at Thomson at the time there, and I guess I was trying to recruit you to come over to Dubai, if I recall.
That's right. And were you successful in doing that?
I was. You came to Dubai. You spent a few wonderful years. Did an amazing job. It was great. It was a pleasure to work with you, and we helped grow some brand new businesses in Dubai, if you recall.
Indeed. Thank you. It's interesting. The reason why I ask people on the show to share how we met is because, as a coach, psychology is one of the elements that is the backbone of our research and practice. And every time I ask people how we met, they have two different recollections. And I see that it is exactly the same dynamic at play here, where I think I recall meeting you in 2009 when I had already relocated to Dubai, where we worked for the same organization, Thomson Reuters. And you were, in fact, instrumental with my relocation over there in Dubai. That's how I remember meeting you in 2009. So I guess I'm 1 year later there.
Yeah, I think we probably started working together after you came here, and we started to, look at all the opportunities that Thomson products and businesses could bring to Middle East and Africa. So it was fun. It was a good days, I like to say.
Absolutely, yes, and it's interesting. Earlier on in the preparation, in the back, in the back end scenes with the team, we were taking pictures of me wearing abaya as a souvenir and homage in me living over half a decade in Dubai. So I will be posting all of those pictures on various social media. So no, thank you for sharing how we met. And the one thing before we talk about the topic is that I would like to publicly appreciate you as an incredible leader. For over half a decade, I worked for Thomson Reuters in Dubai and Africa. I must say that you are one of the rare leaders that are genuinely passionate about work and at the same time people. So you are really focusing on people and performance, and it just comes across naturally with the charisma that you have. So I don't know if I've ever said that to you, but hey, now it's all over internet.
Thank you so much, Mireille. I think it's because of wonderful people like yourself who put in all the hard work and make things happen. It's finding talented people and being able to, support them in their careers has really been a genuine, uh, humbling gift, I guess, that I've received in my life. So I'm really appreciative of the people I've met and the connections we've made. And look at us now, maybe more than 10 years later, talking about that
I know,
and all
right?
the things that have happened in between.
Right. That's right. Yes. It's been 11 years. You're absolutely right. And, speaking about that, those are definitely defining moments in someone's career. And for me, in my leadership work, and today's topic, I believe, is more or less a full circle type of moment. But let us not have our audience wait. Let me just share the topic for today. So today's topic is venturing out of employment into entrepreneurship. Now, the topic is important in our views because when doing research, we have seen that previous pandemics and global crises were, on the one hand, very dramatic and drastic, but on the other hand, there were moments which are defining that really saw the rise of entrepreneurship and inventions and innovations. So I believe that my guest today, Basil, will be able to talk a lot on that topic of innovation and a lot more. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit more about, who you are and the kind of work you do, Basil?
Sure, happy to. Again, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Egyptian by background, just to start off with. It means while I was born in the US, I actually grew up in Egypt, finished both, elementary school, middle school, high school, and university in Egypt. I became a mechanical engineer. And in the last year of being a mechanical engineer, I decided I don't really want to do engineering. It's not really for me. And I had just realized that through some internships that I had done. So I was looking around trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and ended up joining, a global company, Reuters, and kind of going on this global journey around the world. And in the first part of my career at Reuters, I was assigned to the venture capital arm of Reuters. So Reuters had a $400 million fund. They were investing in startups predominantly in the US. I was based out of London, and then eventually I was moved to San Francisco, where what we were trying to do was to invest in companies that we thought would be disruptive to the Reuters business model of news, information, content, and all of that. So think about companies like Yahoo, for example. We also invested
Right.
in Netscape, if you remember what Netscape is, or WebEx,
I
very,
do.
yeah,
I
and
didn't
very
know that Reuters invested in Netscape. Wow.
yes, it no longer
Go ahead.
exists, but it was the first internet browser. as I'm sure you remember. But anyway, there was, yeah, we also invested in WebEx, VeriSign. These were all very successful companies for Reuters because they added not only a financial return to the company, but also they added a strategic angle. They brought technology into the company that was very much needed in the transformation of Reuters from going from a very closed network to a more open public network, if you like. Um, I left in 2002 Reuters, and I went and did my MBA at Harvard Business School in Boston. I was there for a couple of years, but I decided to return to Reuters in more operating roles. So I was managing a business in Europe for a while. Then I was managing emerging markets. I was based out of Dubai. That's when you and I first met. And then I took over, progressively managing larger territories and areas for Reuters. So initially Middle East and Africa, then China, India, Russia, Latin America, and all sorts of markets. And the last job I did, I was the president and CEO of a business called Intellectual Property and Science, which is a bit like Reuters or Bloomberg for that matter. It's information that's mainly for scientists, researchers, innovators, patent information, scientific literature information, and a whole bunch of interesting content, if you like. So that's a little bit about my work background. I'm married. I have two kids. I have a 19-year-old and I have a 10-year-old who live here. We all live in Dubai. My 19-year-old is supposed to be in college in the UK, but unfortunately, she's doing it online here from Dubai because right now the UK is locked down. So, hopefully when it reopens, she'll be able to return in the next month or two. And my 10-year-old is online all the time playing games and doing all sorts of crazy things. So that's my background briefly.
Thank you. Certainly, you have a global footprint and experience. And I love the full circle that you also have. Starting with venture capital and also, come back to it where you currently are now. And I know we will get into that now. Correct me if I am wrong, but this is truly my genuine belief that having looked at the trends, there is certainly a trend in innovation, and you are an expert in that. When there is crisis, there's clearly an opportunity right there. I have a strong belief, and maybe I'm an eternal optimist, that even with COVID-19, we will see a rise in innovations and inventions. Would you agree with that based on your observations of the innovations that you are funding or you've seen generally?
So it is true that some of the best startups have begun because of the consequences of a crisis. So if you recall, in 2008, the world faced a financial crisis when
Right.
Bear Stearns and Lehman melted down, if you like, and there was a global recession in the financial sector, but also more broadly in the economies around the world. That led to a huge rise in fintechs. So you saw the birth of a lot of new companies addressing some of the main issues in the financial system, whether it's lending, whether it is saving, whether it is digital solutions to bring people financial inclusion, if you like, into the banking system so as to allow more people to be protected through the financial instruments and products. And that was really the direct consequence of that 2008 crisis. Now, today, as we're sitting here in 2021, I can't believe I'm saying that.
I know, right?
Yeah, the number's so big. But anyway, while we're sitting here in the year 2021, obviously the things that happened last year have global ramification as well as local ramification, and there are an increasing number of entrepreneurs who are now entering with new ideas and startups, mainly around the digital health area, but equally around education and online education, because people have realized that schools, if you can't go to school, what do? You have to get online
Yeah.
to learn and learn new skills. And that's not just for children, but equally for adults. We've seen an interesting rise in agri-tech. companies, so companies which are addressing
Mhm.
the food supply chain and addressing issues around, food security and so on, especially in countries like the Middle East, but also in Africa where you have shortages. And in the crisis, those shortages became even more severe. Lots of companies are trying to figure out how to locally grow crops or how to improve the supply chain and so on. So I think your instinct is absolutely right. I think crises do lead people, whether whether voluntarily or involuntarily, but lead people into the entrepreneurial journey. And people bring the skills that they've learned in, the companies they worked at, but in a new way and in a new format. I'm super excited, in spite of the pandemic, about what the future has in it. I see lots of interesting ideas all across Africa and across the Middle East. And I see people really
That's great.
taking on a huge, I would say it's a risk, but also capturing the opportunity, if you like.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for validating my intuition and assumption. And I love what you just said about agri-tech. And I'm sure, in Rwanda, agriculture is one of the, key sectors that, are prevalent, when we look at exports of coffee, tea, etc. So I can see that uptick in trend in agri-tech, but I'm sure there's a lot more on that. Thank you. Now, looking at the topic from a global perspective, we now know that entrepreneurship is going to increase. Because we are a coaching conversation show, we always talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence talks about areas of fears, hope, and self-limiting beliefs. We will get to the capital injections and startup capital later on, but I would like really to resonate with the topic, which is to venture out of employment, where majority of people may be, and thinking about venturing into entrepreneurship. What would you say from what you have observed, and I know from your own experience and mine as well, you have seen from an emotional intelligence side of things being a barrier for people to step out and truly create those amazing innovations that the world needs?
Well, the first thing to remember about entrepreneurship is you're going to hear the word no a lot. You're going to hear the word not interested, or you're going to hear, what is it that you're talking about, right? And the world, in entrepreneurship, there's really the dimension of changing the world around you. And if everybody's saying yes to you from day one, then you're a
Mhm.
very lucky person, because or likely you're doing something that isn't super innovative. For entrepreneurs who are innovative, they tend to see the world in a different way than what others
True.
might see or what others might expect. And so one of the key elements of entrepreneurship is to have thick skin, right? Is to be
Mhm.
able to take the disappointments, the loneliness, to be able to handle the no's in a way where
Yeah.
you don't take it personally, but rather take it as, people giving you feedback. Try to understand why they're saying no to your idea, or why they're saying no to investing in your company, and to absorb that feedback and to improve yourself continuously until you do, find the right investor or find the right customer who is, starting to understand your point of view. um,
Mhm.
I guess if entrepreneurship was easy, I think many more people would be in it, and by definition, it is, a riskier career path, but the
Mhm.
rewards on the other side are
Absolutely.
substantial, right?
Yeah.
Both in terms of personal fulfillment of pursuing your dream or pursuing your idea, both in terms of financially, it can be quite lucrative as well. But again, you're playing a long game, not a short game, and there will be definitely days and weeks and months where things may seem tougher than you imagined when you begin the journey. There's an expression that
Yeah.
I hear a lot of times, and entrepreneurship with it, it's very lonely, right? It's a very lonely journey. Many people can sympathize or can help you along the way, but the experience of being an entrepreneur is one that you take on yourself, right? And
Absolutely.
obviously, sometimes you see two entrepreneurs coming together and starting a business, so there's a little bit of having someone along the journey with you, but nonetheless you have to rely on yourself, and you have to rely on your you know intelligence, if you like, and on your strong personality to be able to be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love what you just said about being able to take the nose in, because that's what you will hear of at first. And then again, it depends on the type of innovation you are creating. If it is something that is brand new, that no one has ever done in your world, that means it will be pretty much 100% no at first until you do more work. And I can certainly attest to that with the coaching industry in Rwanda, where it has taken years for people to see the need for, Rwandans to accept to be coached, because to some extent it was new and probably was not valued at first. So the no's that some of my colleagues and I have taken in are indeed, relating to some of what you are saying. I realized that I have not had the chance to ask the audience to ask questions. So this is an interactive session. We would like for you to truly take this opportunity to ask questions to our expert guest today. So feel free to ask questions and comments. I see that we have Joshua joining from Kigali. Hi, Joshua. Thank you very much. And if there's anyone else we have not acknowledged from Kigali, Rwanda, or different countries, feel free to let us know. Right. So now, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on how rejection should not be the final stop. In fact, I remember when I used to do sales, back then in the corporate world, they used to tell us that when you do sales is 90% rejection and 10% success. And there, that means you are a fantastic salesperson. So, but typically it will be less than 10% in terms of success ratio. Let's now talk about the current work you do, Basil. I know that Global Ventures invests in innovations around the globe. Could you tell us a little bit more about Global Venture and the types of innovations you invest in?
Yeah, so after I left Thomson Reuters in 2016, I went through a period of time thinking about what I wanted to do next in my career. And, initially when you leave a large corporate, you begin the process of, well, maybe I should find another corporate job. And I began
Right.
searching for a similar job to what I was doing, but maybe with another company and so on. And as I met other I started to realize that corporates have a lot of limitations, right? And when you're working for one, maybe you don't think about it as much as when you do after leaving. And some of those limitations have to do with, you have to follow certain processes, and there are certain ways of doing things, lots of meetings, internal meetings and discussions that I felt were not a good use of my time, were not productive. At the same time, I started to do some personal investments with some entrepreneurs that I had met here in Dubai, but also in Egypt, and through connections, family, and friends, and so on. And I found every time I met an entrepreneur, I was super excited about what they were doing. And more importantly, I was inspired by how they had taken their life into their hands and started to pursue their own dreams, right? And I felt like I was just coming along for the ride, giving them a little bit of capital, helping them out. Now, since I began my career in venture capital, it kind of became a full circle for me, where I
Right.
realized that actually what I want to spend the kind of rest of my life doing is continuing to work and help and partner with um, entrepreneurs across mainly the Middle East and Africa region. But you're right,
Mm-hmm.
we do look at the global landscape as part of global ventures. But our
Right.
advantage is to be close to people here in Dubai or in Saudi Arabia or in Egypt. But also, we've made investments in Nigeria, Kenya. We're talking to people in Rwanda and in other places across the continent.
Mm-hmm.
And entrepreneurship, being a venture capital is really about partnering. And we
Right.
partner with these entrepreneurs not just to provide money, but also to
Mm-hmm.
provide guidance, feedback, a lot of which is based on my experiences about the things I did when I worked in London or Geneva or lived in Boston or worked in Washington, D.C., and all the places I've been. You built relationships, networks, connections, which I'm happily sharing with entrepreneurs that are part of the global ventures family, if you like. Now,
Right.
just to summarize,
So
global
there
ventures.
is both. Sorry, what I'm hearing you say is that there is both the aspect of funding, capital injection, but at the same time, advisory and mentoring there as well.
Yeah, it's definitely both together because, entrepreneurs who just approach us looking for money but are not interested in our advice, we don't feel like that's a great fit for us. We feel like you have to partner with them. Nobody is perfect on their own. We're not perfect, they're not perfect, but together we can work on making and improving things. And those things can be as simple as how do you structure your financial model? It could be as complicated as how to hire great people in your team for technology, for marketing, for sales. And again, a lot of the experiences which you remember, Mireille, in hiring great salespeople or hiring great financial finance people and so on become part of the work that we do at Global Ventures. We're fortunate enough that we manage a substantial amount of capital now on behalf of our investors, and that gives us the ability to hire a great team. So there's 20 people working at Global Ventures today, and we're very proud of all the work that we do in the Middle East and Africa region.
That's very good. No, thank you for sharing that and giving us a picture of what Global Ventures does. Now, seeing what you do and also the types of entrepreneurs that you are supporting, what would you say would be a common trait that you see our audience can learn from so that they don't go through the same process by learning through your advisory today?
Yeah, there are some certain things that you kind of look for that are repeat themselves in great entrepreneurs. So usually great entrepreneurs don't approach us the first time looking for money. They approach us the first time looking for advice.
Right.
And what does that mean? They're building a relationship with us to understand, are we going to be able to partner together well? They come to us with issues and problems. They share with us some of their challenges and difficulties. And, we give them some of our feedback, not just myself, but from the network of people that work at Global Ventures as well as our advisors. And we share that feedback with them. And then what we look to monitor is how they respond to that feedback, Murray. It's a bit like, it's very similar to your coaching. It's very similar in that, you watch and see the behaviors of the person, about how open they are, how much they're willing to listen and hear you on that feedback and act on it and make incremental improvements as they build their business. Entrepreneurs who are stubborn, frankly, do not fit into our model, and I would think that many venture capitalists find it difficult to work with very stubborn entrepreneurs. But at the same time, having an entrepreneur who's very clear about their idea, about their vision, but open to getting support and help are great entrepreneurs, because they're the ones who are incrementally improving every day. And through that incremental improvement, they beat out the competitors.
Yeah. And I think you just touched upon one of the questions I was going to ask. When you mentioned the stubborn entrepreneurs or those who are not agile enough to receive feedback or to receive improvement comments, it kind of reminds me of statistics that I have seen And there are common statistics about how entrepreneurs, or there's 80% or more percent of entrepreneurs or startup companies that actually fail in the second year or the third year. People would think that startup capital might be the main cause, but what would you say, based on what you have experienced, is one of the key reasons for so many entrepreneurs to fail, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that has many different dimensions to it.
Right.
So let's start off with, at the end of the day, it's about finding your what's called product market fit. And product market fit means you are trying to build a new idea, a new product, a new service, and you're trying to go out to the market and have the market respond to your idea, and and find customers who are willing to pay for your services or your product.
Mm.
That takes time. That takes a lot of time. In fact, most plans that any entrepreneur presents to us get changed very regularly 6 months later. And then,
Wow.
6 months later, they get changed again. So
Mm.
entrepreneurs can fail by being too stubborn about one approach to how they position their products or how they position their services, thinking, oh, I'm going to sell this in Rwanda, let's say. It may
Mhm.
turn out that this product has a better fit in another country. And
Right.
so you have to be agile to think about that and to consider it. Or I'm going to price my product, for 100, when in fact the better price is, let's say, 90. You have to
Right.
be agile again to thinking about, how the customers respond to your product. So I guess people who spend money too quickly, too with too much confidence, and rather than continuously again looking for signals and signs and adjusting their business model and business idea until they find that product market fit, and then all of a sudden you see a hockey stick that goes up very quickly, because once you find the sweet spot of what you're providing, the customers that you want to sell to, all of a sudden the market starts to respond very rapidly to it. So the failure in early stage, in the first 2 years, is the tendency for people to think, because I have this idea, the market is going to
Mm.
buy it, as
Mm.
opposed to listening to the market and incorporating that feedback into their development process, into their process of building up the company.
Yeah. And in an essence, really, it's doing what your company is doing, which is to partner with clients. So the key thing is to see, understand in the first 2 years how to really listen to your market, and then build based on what they want rather than what you think is relevant to the market. So that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And being conscious that the market is the market. People already have established ways of doing things. Yes, people are looking for new products, new services, but they're not going to change just because you've introduced a new idea. You have to explain, you have to get buy-in, you have to get endorsement, you have to build the network effect that makes people interested in what you do. So, companies again have to focus in the early stages about finding that fit and being able to be agile around how they develop their business. Listen, I mean, you know companies also fail because they spend their money too quickly, or the founders, if there's more than one, have an argument together, or they're not honest with their investors, or they're not honest with others, and there's lots of other reasons, right? And I don't want to make it just about product market fit. There are books and books and books that you can read about this, but in my experience, it tends to be about just again listening, and the agility it is that you need to have to be able to adapt your idea in the early phases until you find your sweet spot.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So I see there's quite a few more people who joined. We have about 15 minutes to go. If you have any questions or burning comments or questions that you have, there is still 15 minutes or so to ask that question, or get it out of your chests. While we're waiting for comments or questions to come through, Basil, let me ask you a question. There is this, I guess, assumption that VCs are expensive sort of means for financing, and they are only for late stage investments rather than seed stage investments. What would you say, in your experience in innovation, because that's really what we are focusing on, is the truth here?
Yeah, there are different investors for different stages. And so, things that there are investors who are more excited about backing teams and individuals with their ideas. There are investors who are more excited about backing a product that's, doing well in the market and seeing it grow. And there are investors who are more focused on a fully developed idea, team, and product, and they're just giving you additional fuel, if you like, to be able to go to a new market or to a new area. And the investors tend to be, the ones who are focused on early don't do late stage, and those who do late stage don't do early stage. So one of the key questions, and it's nothing wrong with asking that question, is when you meet an investor or so on, is to say, what stage do you like to invest at? And to really understand, what is their passion. And if there's someone who's later stage, to say, what, love meeting you, why don't we talk again in 6 months or a year when my company's grown a little bit more, then I'll be sending you updates in the meantime so you can keep track of what's happening. It's there are different people for different stages, is kind of the short answer. I like angel investors who are coming with experience from the market, who are backing companies, is a really good sign for global ventures. When we look at stage two, which is kind of company has developed a product and is now starting to grow its sales. We tend to come in that second stage. So we always look for signs of who has backed you in the first stage. If you've done something just on your own without having any backers, that's okay. But if you have backers who are from the industry that you're in, so if it's a digital health and you have doctors or you have hospital practitioners backing you, that's a really good sign for us. It gives us confidence that people believe in what you're doing. And so again, every stage is kind of looking at the earlier stage for signs of confidence about this idea being successful.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that great feedback. What I hear is that conversations is really to be open when you are an entrepreneur, and see whether the investor you are approaching is the right fit for you today or potentially in future. That really stood out for me. One more question. Now, looking at the successful projects or innovations or investments that you have done, focusing on Africa, because our audience is predominantly in Africa. What would you say to people who are truly aspiring to become entrepreneurs, and particularly in the area of innovation here on the continent? What would you look for, or what advice would you give to them?
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm focused on tech investments, right?
Right.
And so why is that important? Because technology is borderless. And in
Mm,
many cases, technology can be developed in other countries and become competition for you in the country that you're in. So one of
mhm.
the important things that I would give as advice is to do your research and to make sure that when you're developing your idea, not only to speak to people within your country, but also people maybe in surrounding countries or other markets that are connected with wherever you're at. So I know Egypt quite well, so I'll talk about Egypt, but I'm sure it applies to Rwanda as well, or Nigeria or Kenya. A lot of things that happen in Egypt, because it's English speaking country, can come from other English speaking jurisdiction. So Egyptian startups, face competition from, Dubai, from London, from the US, from all sorts of places where you can also have similar ideas and similar things. So number one, do your research. Don't come prepared to talk to an investor especially if you're looking to get their advice and they ask you basic questions and you say, I don't know if there's competition, I don't know, what you have to spend time doing your research. The other thing is to think about your venture in stages. And what I mean by stages is to think about and say, in the first 6 months, I want to develop my prototype. And in the next 6 months, I want to test my prototype with, 50 customers or 100 customers, whatever it is. And in each stage to define what is success. So if you're developing a prototype, your success is for it to work, your success is for it to achieve, a certain improvement in whatever the product is, operational effectiveness, or it helps improve the way you, I don't know, wash your skin, if it's a soap, for example, I don't know, whatever the idea may be. And I guess to be very clear about what your goals are and to achieve those goals in incremental stages. And once you achieve your goal on the first thing, to give feedback to the investors to say, what, I said I was going to do this and now I've done it. My next goal is to do this, or my third goal is to do that. Those stages are important way to give feedback, and to build confidence with investors so that they want to keep backing you throughout the journey. No one's going to write you a $10 million check to, for the full journey of the company. They'll write incremental checks, 200,000 and then 500,000 and then 2 million and then 5 million, as they see you making progress on your idea. So research and think in stages are the two main pieces of advice.
Absolutely. And I also heard something else other than research and incremental stages is to know how to pitch, which is one of the things that we teach at our coaching academy as part of a sales and business development coaching, where we teach professionals to know how to pitch your product, how to pitch your coaching, any coaching services or business services. So I hear that this is indeed very important when you are pitching to business investors. Got a question for you. It's from Mohammed Kaswani. Hi, Mohammed. It would be nice to hear where you are dialing in from, Mohammed. So Mohammed is asking, any book recommendations on PMF?
What's PMF?
That's exactly what I asked Mohammed as well. So I'm waiting for Mohammed to respond as to what is PMF. I guess project management, but it's just an assumption. But while we're waiting for him to chat with a response, do you have any books perhaps you can recommend to entrepreneurs, one or two that come to your mind, or tech innovators?
Yeah. There's two books that I really love, and there are lots of books out there about entrepreneurship and so on, but there's something called The Innovator's Dilemma, which is a really interesting book about, how you think through the dilemma of incremental innovation versus disruptive innovation. And it's easy to think in incremental innovation, which is slight improvements, but there are moments in the world where you have to think in disruptive technologies, or you have to think about leapfrogging ahead. In Africa, there's a huge opportunity around disruptive technologies because, let's take the telephone, industry, for example. There are still many places in across Africa where people don't have a telephone. It doesn't make sense to try to find a better telephone. You're going to leapfrog to a mobile phone, or maybe even, beyond that, to a smartphone, and immediately jump into a new world. So you have to think in big disruptions. If you think about the crisis that we live in today, where the health crisis that we're facing and the need for people to see doctors, again, the solution isn't just to build new hospitals. Of course we need hospitals, but the solution is also to think about telemedicine, and how can telemedicine connect doctors with remote locations and remote areas where people need those services, but they don't have the benefit of having a local hospital or a local clinic to support them.
Yeah.
So you have to
just to give you, sorry, Basil, to give you the feedback from Mohammed, PMF stands for product market fit. We just learned something from you, Mohammed.
Yeah. Perfect. And then the other book, which is actually a good book on product market fit, is The Hard Things About Hard Things.
Hard
I'm
things about hard things. I'm
yeah,
taking notes.
I'm gonna forget the name of the author, but there's only one book with that title at this point. And the hard thing about hard things is really talking about, you know, why should you pursue, the going after difficult problems, right? And what's the value in going after difficult problems? I think most of us can think about, pursuing. Lots of us can have ideas, and lots of those ideas are very simple ideas: opening a restaurant, opening a shop, opening a small business to, service your local clients. But it's really, really interesting to think about difficult problems, right? Such as, how do you provide healthcare to millions of, women, or millions of disenfranchised people in Africa? And the hard thing about hard things is really an inspirational book about why you should pursue the difficult problem, the rewards of pursuing those difficult problems, and thinking through how you break it down into incremental steps so that you can achieve the final ultimate goal through those, stages and steps. It is about
Wonderful.
product market fit at some level, but it is also about how you take difficult problems and make them small digestible stages, if you like.
Right. Wonderful. Mohammed, I hope we helped you. I can see he is okay. Ben Horowitz wrote it. He said, all
Yeah.
right, thank you very much for that. Okay, so there are 4 minutes left, and in those 4 minutes, I would like to have your final comments on what else you believe we need to hear, and also how our audience can connect with your work and connect with your organization and you personally for the topic that we just discussed.
Yeah, so it's been a great session, and it's wonderful to be able to have a chance to speak with you again, Mireille, and to see all the wonderful things that you're doing. I would start off by really saying, entrepreneurship is not something that everybody should pursue, but it's something that everybody should consider. And what I mean by that is to really look at the skills, the knowledge that you build through your life, and to think about how you can apply those in certain circumstances and in certain situations, right? And and for those who have the courage, but also the kind of thick skin that we talked about earlier, to really go after those dreams, because the rewards and the satisfaction of entrepreneurship are truly, truly amazing. So I would start off by saying to people, you know do consider it, do think about it, do your research, get the advice and talk to people who have done it before you, so that you can really be prepared when you do decide to go on your entrepreneurial journey. We're easily reachable at global.vc. That's our URL on our website. On there, you can submit ideas and get connected with our team. I'm personally available. Really, on a lot of my stuff is on LinkedIn and Twitter. So you'll find me, Basil Moftah, on LinkedIn. I'm not sure there are that many Basil Moftahs anyway, so you'll be fine. And I do write a lot about different experiences I have with entrepreneurs, or ideas or topics. So you'll find a lot of materials that are, hopefully worthwhile to read. If anything, they just share some thoughts and some things and advice that may be useful to people. And my email is basil@global.vc. You're welcome to email me. I'll try to respond as quickly as I can, but sometimes with the busyness of the day, it takes a day or two to get back. But I enjoy talking to entrepreneurs, even at the early stage, before it's suitable for global ventures to look at, because I feel like we're all in this together to make our world a better place, to improve the lives that we all live for us and hopefully for others.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you so much, Basil, indeed, for your time and your this feels like not only a coaching conversation, but also a mentoring session to some extent, where you shared your wise experience, but also wise nuggets with a lot of teachable moments and really key things for people to consider as they are not only venturing out of employment, but into entrepreneurship as well. I like how you talked about the emotional side of things, as well as, you know, the hard things that we need to think about, just like the book that coincidentally our audience is aware of. Thank you very much. And you've actually given me some ideas on EdTech, which is something I've wanted to do for Cora Coaching and Business Academy. You know, how do we automate our coaching curricula? Those are the things, as you were speaking, they were kind of resonating. So maybe I'll reach out to your team and see what else can be done there, and innovate for Rwanda and also places like South Africa, where we are busy with certain investments there. Now, for next Sunday, I'm inviting all of you to join us. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and click like on this very same channel. And I'm inviting you to join us next Sunday, where my guest is going to be a media strategist from South Africa. Her name is Guguletu Fupi. She's a media strategist and, you know, has been an anchor for CNBC Africa, has interviewed key leaders like the president of South Africa. And she's going to talk to us about how she sources good news in a world filled with bad news. Remember, we are here to inspire you, to uplift your morale on Sundays so that you can start the week on a high note. So I'm inviting you to join us same time next Sunday, 6 p.m. Kigali time, 4 p.m. GMT. And if you're following us from North America, it is 11 a.m. Eastern time. And Dubai, it is going to be 8 p.m. in Dubai. Thank you, everyone. And remember, subscribe to this channel. Thank you, Basil, for your time. I'll see you very soon.
I hope so too. Take care.